Hello.
Hello, sorry I'm late.
No worries. Welcome to your interview.
That looks very scary.
Right?
Yeah.
I aim to induce fear.
Yeah, at least you have a good view over there.
Yeah, it's so that I'm comfortable.
Yes.
It's no fun inducing fear on yourself. It's something that you want others to, have.
I don't know where J is. Let me see. I think he's here. Yeah. Let me ping J. Okay.
So there's one thing I'm just noticing as we're looking through these templates. The app armor constraint template is about to rot.
The app armor constraint template is rotting.
It's about to rot. Yeah, apparently in K8s 1.30, you can set app armor inside the security context as opposed to just using an annotation. And our constraint template only accounts for the annotation.
Say again, our constraint template, what?
Only looks at the annotation.
I see. Do we need to do like a major bump?
I don't think a major bump, because this is kind of the intent, right? Is that as the K8s API expands, you can upgrade and keep everything working with low effort. Minor version bump, I think, makes sense because it's like definitely a behavioral change, but it's like backwards compatible with the parameter schema, right? There's no change to the shape of the constraint, just how the constraint looks at pods to validate whether the constraint is satisfied.
I'll take a note on this. App armor changes. Okay. Did you create an issue for this mix?
No, I just saw this like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, right. I took a note. We can create an issue. And Jay just joined. Max was saying, I think app armor template is needs to change because of I think Kubernetes changed how it's implemented. So we might need to make some changes.
Okay. Oh, what changes?
Precedent for this, I was trying to find. We've done something like this before. It looks like with seccomp.
Yeah, I think we changed some of them. Yeah. You said Kubernetes 130?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Here, I have a
Oh, I see. I found it. Yeah.
bit of K8s docs.
Oh, there's an app armor profile now. I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this happened with in other things. There was like something seccomp profile or something like that. Yeah, this exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so sounds like we need to change the policy to include app armor profile.
Yeah, and there's some nuance there, right? Because if you're on an older cluster, it's still going to rely on the annotation.
Yep.
So yeah, I would definitely lean on whatever we did for the seccomp profile.
Yeah, I don't remember what we did. Let me see. General. Oh no, but security policy. Oh, is this why we did the V2 thing? I wonder if it's that.
Oh, do we have a V2 of SecCom profile? Maybe. Yeah,
that-
like, come to think of it, we did add some parameters to gate.
No, that's not it. I don't see a V2. One of them has V2, but I don't remember which one now.
That's SEL Linux. No, that's.
Oh
but-
yeah.
But it's V2 in the name. Like there is no. The version itself is 1.0.3.
Yeah. See.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, that
Like-
one's weird. I think there was a breaking change, so we decided to do a V2 on that one.
Yeah, I mean, if V2 is in the kind, it should show up in the major version of the semver, right? Those should.
Yeah, this is before we did the
Mm,
versions.
online.
Old, yeah. Continuous notation. Is it sitcom?
Yeah, that's pull request 167.
167. So many tabs. Okay. Let's see. Oh, right. Yeah, this is yeah, we changed this one, I remember. Okay. Yeah, this used to be annotations. Now it's a thing in the pod spec now. Yeah, container security. Yeah, in the security context. Yeah. I will add to the node. Yeah, cool. So I think we need to do the same thing and keep the backwards compatibility. Cool. Anything else on this topic?
No, that's just something I noticed. Although I do think it's a rather cool feature of Gatekeeper that we could handle changes like these in a way that users don't much need to care. They just need to keep their constraint templates up to date. That's something that you get with PSA because it's like built into Kubernetes. But you don't get if you're rolling your own
Yeah.
policy code.
And then Jay, are you good with the PR now? I think.
Yeah. I addressed all the latest feedback. Yeah. There is just one policy. I didn't add privilege escalation policy yet because I saw some incoming changes about exempt images in your draft PR. So I was thinking maybe you'd be able to add it later on once the PR is merged. That way, like it's less back and forth.
Once my PR is merged, or which PR
So-
is
Right, that's really independent, right? I can merge the CI PR that I have right now, and then you can merge the privilege escalation PR. Let's keep that PR as a source of truth for that policy particularly.
Yeah, I mean, let's not merge policies with known bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we probably don't want to merge the exceptions using regex. I've already made the changes that were needed to like do glob style matching there. Basically the problem was I overlooked that the dots character is allowed in a Docker image path, right? Like as part of the host name, for instance, which, as we all know, in regex is the escape character for any single character, right? Which is not ideal for an exemption. So you could just make up a separate host name that like aligns to, it's like a substitution of the host name that you know is exempt. So what I did was I rewrote the exemption thing to use just strict prefix checking.
Yeah.
And use some pre-processing to simplify that logic. So it actually shouldn't be that big of a change. Like it shouldn't touch any code that you have not already copy pasted from.
Yeah, but
my
I just removed the changes from my PR for that policy altogether. So like that the CI changes doesn't have any changes related to privilege escalation policy.
Oh, this is CI. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about a constraint template that you
Oh,
were
no, no,
working
no.
on.
No.
Okay, sorry.
I'm just talking about the PR, as the CI for the testing.
Yeah, was there anything outstanding? Am I blocking that? No?
No, I don't think so. I just this was your last comment that adding cell for privilege escalation policy as well to keep it in one PR, and I think like keeping it separate makes it easier because we already have one policy that we can test with which is like required label thing. So once you are ready with your PR, you can just have it all there and then we can review it rather than going back and forth about this logic.
Cool. Yeah. So the required labels thing, did that one look fine?
And Jay, I think the path with the 315 one and cell is not valid, right? Is that why you added those if statements?
Yeah. So there was a Slack thread where me and Rita discussed testing cell policies just with 316 and not with 315 because for 315 that Helm variable is not available. So we need to rely upon deployment files to enable cell policies, right? So that's why we discussed like using Helm, install 315 without that and only test Rego policies on 315, and then for 316 we can test both kinds of policies on 316. And then once we have 317, that logic will go away as well.
Yeah, but we still have, because of the matrix, we still have that 315 with cell path.
Yeah, but
just
it
doing
just
anything.
skips. It just skips.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I couldn't figure out not to have that job any like executed, but there is no way to do it.
Yeah, because this is like a matrix, so
Yeah.
going to be combination for both. I don't know if there's a way to skip a path.
So
like
think-
if you're sorry,
good.
if you're looking at just test results from PR itself, CI will say that it ran 315 with cell policies, but if you
Yeah.
look under
Yeah.
it will just skip all the things.
Yeah, maybe you can do the opposite thing to just have like a if for 315 and cell, and then just like exit 0 or something like that.
What do you mean?
So instead of adding ifs for not handling the 315 with cell case, so you add an if with if 315 and cell, then just exit 0 and then add a comment, say, hey, we cannot test this for blah blah reasons.
Yeah, but that's the thing, like it. So it's weird thing about GitHub where at the top of the job, if statement doesn't have the context to metrics variables, it's only under the steps it has the context of matrix variable. So under the steps you get to know about what matrix variables are available, not
Yeah.
at the job level.
So what I'm saying is that after the job starts, the first thing would be like if it is gatekeeper 315 and cell, then we exit 0. So that job will no longer continue. So you only have you need one if statement instead of like
Oh, okay. So you're saying on the first step itself, we just exit 0.
just basically just for that
Yeah.
use case. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I
what you
can.
did, but opposite of that basically.
Yeah, I can make that change.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, one thing I think before we merge any cell, we probably need to fix the object, old object, delete thing. If the solution to it is to modify the cell code. Which I think it is, right? And like, just to like recap the problem, gatekeeper on delete operations. It by default, the request object that Kubernetes is giving us, object is nil for delete object operations, and old object is populated. And we rewrote object to equal old object in that case. I think this was a backwards compatibility thing. Like, I think the behavior of K8s may have changed at some point around this. Either that or we thought it'd be a nice, transparency thing. In retrospect, I don't know if that was the motivation of that actually was a good idea. But now we're left with the problem of if a constraint is being executed as a native VAP enforcement environment thing, then gatekeeper is no longer in the loop, right? So it can't do that rewriting. I think the easiest way to solve this is to just create another cell variable called like resolved object or something like that. That has that behavior of if object is nil, use old object, maybe gated on the delete request operation being populated. So if we do that, the reason why we'd want to do that is to say that request.object in Rego and this like dynamic object or whatever we're calling it in cell, those are 100% operationally equivalent, right? Because like right now there's there may not be any kind of like operational equivalent variable there.
So why
But
why is like object needed in delete requests?
it's not necessarily, the problem here is backwards compatibility, right? The problem is we have behavior that already exists, and that behavior shouldn't break when or if people move to the new thing, right? And so as part of that, we need to be able to write Rego that is like functionally identical to, or sorry, cell that is functionally identical to the Rego, right? And so that requires a functionally identical variable. So that's thing one. And then thing two is once we have VAP enforcement, VAP enforcement needs to work like in the same way it would have worked in Gatekeeper.
So but that's what my initial question was. I think I may have made it more clear, but like what are those policies that depend on current object for delete in Rego? Like, are there any policies that I'm confused as to why?
Technically, all of them, right? Because the thing is, all Rego is written against the presumed inputs, right? Like you presume object is a Kubernetes object, you presume object exists. Now, by default, gatekeeper doesn't even get called for delete requests. It's questionably wise that we enabled it for delete requests. So there were users that wanted that. And so the current behavior is if gatekeeper happens to be called for a delete request, any constraint templates you have will be invoked, and the Rego will be evaluated with object being equal to old object, right? Good.
So for that matter, if object exists in the cluster with already in the violation of the policy, which is in the audit results anyways, and if someone tries to delete that object, gatekeeper would deny it if delete is anticipated by gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper would deny a delete if yeah, as I said, I don't think it was necessarily the best idea to do this. I think delete is like weird enough that if you're operating in that realm, you're writing code specialized to delete anyway. And this is years ago this got added, so like I'm hoping it was just like a backwards compatibility thing, right? Well, hoping it kind of doesn't matter because the point is this is the behavior that exists, and like the contract must be maintained. I certainly wouldn't do it this way if we were designing from scratch right now.
So is there a way can we remove that behavior from like Lego or gatekeeper as well, because we'd be on the hook for third engine also if we add it somewhere along the line or whatever.
No, I don't think there is, but there's a saving grace here in that the only reason this is salient is because gatekeeper and constraint framework are out of the loop, right? And that only happens when we're using VAP as the enforcement mechanism, right? So we're running inside the K8s API server where we have no control. Now, when we're inside the K8s API server, there are two things that are true. One, we're using the K8s native policy engine, which at least for now is this VAP cell stuff, right? And two, we are necessarily dealing with a Kubernetes admission target, right? Because it's validating admission policy. Now we're getting full circle to me being we should be more strict about like our target definitions. But this is part of why. So we can kind of say we do not need to worry about this edge case for other engines. What we probably should do is modify, because I believe right now this rewriting of object, old object exists in the admission webhook. It probably should be part of the target handler. It's a little moot because the only way this would happen is part of the webhook, but just it's more conceptually consistent. And then if we add new engines, right, it's the rewriting will already happen, right? And objects behaving differently if it's being run in Gatekeeper versus if it's being run in VAP is already happening. Maybe we could figure out that bit, right? Like if operating under cell, I don't know, undo the substitution or something like that. Sorry, if operating if cell is being evaluated in Gatekeeper, undo that substitution so that we equal VAP's logic. I don't know. But at least we don't need to worry about it spilling out into other engines. Yeah, the asymmetry of object behaving differently, I would also like to solve that though, because that could break people, right? If they assume one behavior and it's not consistent. Like we could provide guidance, only use this variable, but that only gets you so far. We could bake that into the cell engine, actually, because this is the K8s native engine, right? It's it's highly coupled to Kubernetes. So I don't personally have any qualms about testing whether request is present and modifying object inside the engine code, right? Normally, it would be a bad idea to couple engine to environment, but I think particularly for native stuff, the reality is, like, for the most part, people are writing these full stack enforcement suites anyway, right? Where the target handler is implicit and they've invented their own language, whether it's, VAP cell, whether it's Sentinel or whatever else, right? And so you can kind of assume that there will be this common pattern of, if you're using an engine that is native to a given ecosystem, and it also has a target handler native to that ecosystem, there will be this kind of like special relationship. And particularly if, we keep using this rewriting kind of model where, for Kubernetes, we're like, it would be nice if we use the native enforcement mechanism because it has these operational qualities we want. If we pretend, let's say Terraform does the same thing, right? If we have a Terraform target handler and we have a Terraform language, Sentinel or whatever the engine would be, we can kind of assume the same thing, right? We're going to be taking a constraint and a template and using the native engine for that platform and rewriting everything to be whatever the platform native format requires.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question. You said so then for native cell validation, we should have a variable, say, that backfills for the object when the object is missing, right? Like,
Yeah, potentially gated on whether the operation is delete.
yeah,
We'd need to look at how the logic works
but
and copy
but
whatever that is.
then like for policies, that same change would need to be in the gatekeeper cell as well, right? Because for gatekeeper, it for delete itself, it fills up object variable name object, but for native cell, it be filling up variable named temp object, for example, right? And for expressions written in cell, uh for gatekeeper policies, the author would be looking at all variable name object, but for policies existing or if getting evaluated in the native API server, would be looking at, like, say, temp object, right? So that's a parity mismatch there.
Yeah, so what I would do is use the same kind of model we've been using for match criteria, which, hold on, package, client, drivers, K8s cell, transform, oops, that's cell snippets test, I want cell snippets go. So this file here, basically when we invoke, or sorry, when we do a translation from a constraint template constraint to a policy definition, we inject certain like variables, right? To handle the disconnect between how our match criteria are a little bit, we have more and different ones than VAP does, right? So that's how we cover that gap. And this would be the same kind of thing, right? We could create a variable that has that name. And, you know, internally for our engine, that's trivial because we own the engine code. For VAP, this is just another variable that we're adding. And we would probably put it at the top, right? To make sure it's like always there for any downstream expression.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and with regard to the how does object behave and making sure it's consistent with VAP, yeah, probably, as I said, I would actually do that unwinding in the engine itself. It's gross, but I don't think it actually violates the constraints of reality. Just it's doesn't adhere as cleanly to the abstractions as I would like.
So this change also can be parallel to all the other changes we are making, right? Related to web and cell.
And
Like
can be
how
what? All the change? Sorry.
parallel to other changes, like for example, the changes I'm making to integrate scoped enforcement action and VAP as enforcement point, or how we are enabling VAP with a field in template now rather than on annotations. This change can exist in parallel to those ones, right?
Yeah. It's not going to affect anything that you're working on.
Yeah.
It might affect some of Rita's stuff. I actually don't think it will. And that's already merged regardless. What it really is, it's a blocking concern for merging any cell code. Just because, as I said, we don't want to merge any cell code with known bugs in it, and this is a known bug. It's a quick fix. I'll see if I can't like put a pull request in today. And this is a good example of why I'm glad we haven't like graduated the engine. Yeah, because this is definitely an edge case that is the kind of thing that we wanted to suss out before we say, yeah, we think we won't be breaking anyone.
So, but I think I remember this conversation between you and Rita on, I think, my PR, that delete operation kind of doesn't exist for cell right now. Just
Correct.
create an update, right?
Yeah. And so the problem is looking forward, right? If we anticipate supporting the delete operation, we'll get into this issue, right? And so at that point, you have cell that is not broken yet, but will break when we hit this delete operation, and may also break if we modify how object is defined, just generally, right? Like and there's also the fact that delete operation isn't in effect for cell generation, but it is in effect for cell that is evaluated by gatekeeper itself.
Can you repeat the last part? I didn't quite follow you.
Yeah, delete is not something that will be enabled for the generation of VAP objects, at least in the MVP. But cell could still be called for delete operations if gatekeeper is the one doing the evaluation, right? Because gatekeeper doesn't care about the engine, right? And so it'll just shunt the request off to the constraint framework. And yeah.
So delete operation wouldn't be for like native cell, Like Kubernetes, if we are using Kubernetes cell, delete operation wouldn't work there. But if we are using gatekeeper and cell code to evaluate gatekeeper, delete operation will work there.
Yeah, and that's just the current reality, right? We're not doing anything special. Yeah. And I should say that's if users have set up gatekeeper to be called for delete, which is not the default behavior that we give people.
Okay. And I had one more question about policy that you already have. So for Rego policies, I have noticed that exempt there is exempt library Rego code for every PSP policy or most of it, and it's like reusable. Is it same for the cell expression that you wrote on your policy?
It's oh, that's so hard. The problem with saying that my code is reusable, or the cell code that I wrote is equivalent to that Rego code is as reusable as the Rego code, is that it functions a little bit differently, right? Like the Rego code, because you can define functions in Rego, right? We just say, hey, give me an image string and I'll check it against an exempt list. And I'll let you know true or false, was it exempt, basically. Cell doesn't let you do functions, right? So we can't just like iterate over images in real time, like as we're analyzing them and say, oh, this container is this image, that's exempt, let's just skip to the next one. So instead, we kind of like fake a function, right? By pre-compiling a list so that we look at all the images in an object and say, well, this one's exempt, that one's not exempt, blah, 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 blah. And we compile a list of exempt objects. So our function call is really just the in statement, right? Like image in X. But because of that, this pre-processing is coupled to the shape of an object, right? So the pre-processing works for a pod, right? Because it knows that spec.containers, spec.init containers, spec.ephemeral containers, or whatever. For a deployment, that would break, right? Because it's then spec.template.spec.containers, right? And so forth. So it's not as reusable as the Rego code, because the Rego code, you could copy paste that function and you're just changing how it's called, right? In the cell code, you're copy pasting and rewriting.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
but aren't most of PSP policies 4 ports?
What's that?
Aren't most of the PSP policies for pod? Like,
yeah, like all of them are. Like, that's why I'm like, because if you know that the input shape is exactly the same, then yeah, you could copy paste. Other than like, actually calling it, right? That part is coupled to however you've written your condition logic. But I want to be careful because users have written policies against deployments, right? Particularly before we had expansion templates. And so to say that it is as portable would be misleading for that kind of use.
writing cell expressions are difficult as I'm finding it out.
Did you all see, I think it was on Rita's PR, but I put a comment to like the hidden cell libraries. that
No, I
will make
didn't.
your life so much easier. Okay. Okay, yeah, let's find Rita's PR and I'll post that link. Yeah, because let's see, which one was it? Was it FS group? You know what? Probably I should look for the one with a comment. This one has 3 comments. Wait, this is, oh no, okay, this is on top of, oh, it's hard to tell when GitHub might have just smashed a comment versus. Interesting. Why don't I see any comments on that? Okay, let me look at the other one, but this one has 70 comments. That feels wrong. Oh no, that's your CI push. Why does that have her? Oh, well, I just cannot process what's parallel at the horizontal level, I guess. Okay, here it is. Here's the comment. This is on pull request 521 of the Gatekeeper library repo. So one, this gives like the rough shape that I wound up using for the exempt images regex stuff. Because looking at this, that's what made me realize, oh no, Docker totally have dots in there. So it kind of solved my own problem doing that too. Now, but at the bottom, I talk about the extended cell library. And there's a couple of interesting links in there. The first one, the environment link. If you look at how K8s deals with cell, it's basically feature gating language features based off of the Kubernetes version that it was introduced, right? So when you call the VAP core code, you could say, give me the flavor of cell that was valid as of K8s 129 or whatever, right? And if there's been new libraries that have been added since that point, it will ignore those and you won't be able to access them. And part of why they're doing this is for forwards and backwards compatibility, right? They need to be able to parse pre-existing policy definitions that are on the cluster, even if the cluster has been rolled back, right? But for us, why it's useful is that lets us know what functions are actually available to us at which Kubernetes version. And I think it's the only place you could go to right now for that granularity. The next one, this cellgo blobmaster ext, these are basically, so there's the cell spec documentation, which I lean on pretty extensively as like what things cell provides, right? That's where you can find things like the .all mapper, right? Or the has macro. I think the .match is also in there. But they've added a bunch of other stuff, right? Like the ability, for instance, to take a slice of a list, right? Super, super useful. Not part of the core language spec. So it lives in this ext repository. And that's, uh-oh, JDIP dropped off. Should I wait and see if he comes back? Because
let me see. Yeah, let's give him a minute. Just send me a message.
yeah. But this is Yeah, I'm glad that I highlighted this then, because without some of these functions, some of these policies are just straight up not writable.
Yeah, you mean like the prefixes, explicit, exempt images, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, like strings.replace, that's not part of the core language spec. That's an extension. And I was looking for it in the language spec, and I was like, where did I get this from? Like, what magic and sorcery was I looking at? And so I re went through the code to find
Yeah, I was
these
looking
links.
at if this in this cell code, if they have some sort of like a way to describe their stuff, but I couldn't find it either. So the good find on your side, Max.
Yeah, there's also
I was looking for like if they have like an API or something like that that listed like all of their like functions, but I couldn't find anything.
yeah, sadly, no, because it's kind of like fragmented.
Yeah.
I would imagine, like, so there's the Golang cell X library. I think there's one that's written in Java. There's probably one written in C++. And I don't know, like, if they have the same ext library associated with them, or how much overlap there is between, right? Like, presumably they would keep the same kind of shape, but maybe some stuff was easier to implement in Go or whatever. There's also stuff that Kubernetes wrote for itself. So that would be, for instance, Kubernetes wrote a lot of URL parsing libraries. Oh, and I just got distracted because there's so many different threads. There's also like cell improvement proposals. I mentioned this a couple of meetings ago, but like the has statement, we don't actually need to use that because there's this dot question mark operator. It's not really documented anywhere as far as I could tell, but if you wanted to play with it, it might streamline some of what we have written, because it can avoid nesting hases. And it just, like, if a field is missing, it returns undefined, and it kind of like curries that all the way down the call stack. And so you could just, at the end, test if undefined, and something was missing somewhere in the tree. Anyway, sorry, I was waiting, Jada. I kind of like was waiting and got sidetracked. But what I was saying is, Kubernetes has environments where some functions may or may not be included depending on the Kubernetes version, and you can kind of like pretend to be in whatever environment you want to be. But for our purposes, what that's useful for is that lets us know what's actually available to us if we read through that environment's code, and we could see which of the ext libraries VAP has integrated. And also we can read custom functions that VAP has implemented, like parsing URLs, like parsing, they have some fancy regex like match all, I think. They have IPv6 handling, or just an IP address handling library generally. Yeah, so there's good stuff in there that might be necessary.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing this.
Yeah. And yeah, everyone has the link. I want to make sure that, or just chat me if you've lost it from the Zoom chat.
I just wanted to clarify, and it sounds like we can reuse most of your code, right, Max?
Yeah. Like, because we're working on pods, you could probably copy paste my
Yeah.
code for the exemptions.
Yeah, I don't think we have any deployment level policies, like in the library.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna lose the room in like 2 minutes.
Okay.
What was that?
I was just saying, we don't have any deployment level policies in the library.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have any deployment stuff because we have the expansion templates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and then I mean, it sounds like this is basically we can just take the same thing and exempt and whatever applies to all of them. And I guess we can create our own sort of like those libraries like libs like Rego, and then just put it somewhere.
We could, the coupling with the input is what worries me about that, right? Like if we just created libs, like the reason why the Rego stuff works is because it has you can define a function that has a well-defined contract, right? Give me a string, I'll run this test against it.
Right.
I suppose though, like the
I mean, we still have the
exempt
gator,
containers lib. Yeah, we do couple that with the shape of the parameters.
right? Yep.
But
I mean, I
that
think
is
for
easy to
documentation
see.
purposes, that would be good. If somebody were to do the same thing with, say, deployments or whatever, we can say, hey, this is specifically for the pod spec, but if you need to use for whatever, then you might need to change.
Yeah, and libratizing it would be good. I don't know if libratizing is a word, but making it work.
Yeah, like
Because
they would like people would be starting from somewhere instead of like nothing, and then have to figure out all these like the cell hidden syntaxes and whatnot.
yeah, and if they create like post containers or whatever at some
Yeah.
point, having streamlining handling that. Anyway, any burning stuff before I go?
Nope.
And then Jay, does this apply to your PR? No, right? This is for the next PR. I think you had it, but you removed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is for policies we are gonna write in some.
Cool. Right.
All right, cool. It's good to see everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.